Do we have minutes?
Because Helen was your secretary, yes, you did.
Well, we can still come back to that if you want, but that, I just had to give you a bad time about it.
The day you don't give me a hard time about minutes, I'm done.
I'd check his pulse
Right,
first.
yeah.
Well, you better be careful about that. Now I know.
This is how you get rid of me.
Okay, well, I suppose then we'll just jump into Bridger Brewing West minor subdivision. And I see you have, that's the staff report you gave us, so I guess you're up.
All right, perfect. Benny, can I steal one of your microphones? Can I have one?
You may. That's a way to quiet me down.
All right. So this is the staff report of the Bridger Brewing West minor subdivision. Date of application was August 31st, 2020. Date of sufficiency, February 9th, 2021, and the review period will end March 31st of 2021. The applicant is Scubar Holdings 2, LLC of Bozeman, Montana. The applicant's representative is Alpine Surveying and Engineering, also of Bozeman, Montana. I believe in your application as item number 4, there should be a preliminary plat in there as well as the nice color photo that was submitted, so for your reference. Okay. General location. The proposed subdivision is situated off US Highway 287 and Wheatland Road. The developers intend to create 2 lots from an existing 37.178 acre parcel. The minimum lot size proposed is 12.036 acres, and the maximum lot size proposed is 25.142 acres. The required preliminary review fee of $1,700 and the weed inspection fee of $200 have both been paid. The developer is requesting a variance from Appendix M of the Broadwater County Subdivision Regulations for Lot 1 and a variance from DEQ for Lot 2. The variance requests are included in the preliminary plat application as item 1. And you also have a variance request that I disseminated just before the meeting. The proposed preliminary plat, Bridger Brewing West Minor Subdivision, as submitted by the applicants, together with the required supplementary plans and information, appear to satisfy the requirements of these regulations and comply with the Broadwater County Growth Policy Plan, dated July 2020. A vicinity map as well as a preliminary plat is provided in the preliminary plat application. No rock outcroppings or the presence of bedrock have been identified on the property. The proposed development is not in an area subject to flood hazard. Each lot will be served by the future Wheatland Water and Sewer District, and no on-site wastewater systems or wells will be installed. Lot owners will be responsible for disposal of their own solid waste. Subdivision residents will have the option of hiring an independent contractor to pick up their solid waste or transport it themselves to the Logan landfill. There are no existing drainages on the proposed subdivision property. The current use of this parcel is vacant land. This property is not considered prime farmland even if it were irrigated. Therefore, the proposed subdivision should not have an effect on agricultural productivity since it is not currently utilized for any agricultural purposes. The responsibility to maintain boundary fences will be the individual landowners. The developer will be required to control any noxious weeds until the property is turned over to the subsequent landowners. Since this is a first minor subdivision, an environmental assessment is not required. No falls, slides, or slumps, or adverse soil, rock, mud, or snow have been identified on the property. No rock outcroppings have been identified either. The property is located within the Intermountain Seismic Belt that extends through western Montana and frequently produces small earthquakes and has previously developed some major earthquakes. Property damage and risk can be minimized with construction techniques and earthquake planning. There are no marsh, shrub, or forest lands located on the property. There are no trees or vegetation cover. Existing vegetation consists of light native grasses and some prickly pear cactus. No critical plant species have been identified. Existing vegetation will only be disturbed for necessary construction of driveways, utilities, and structures. Any construction disturbance will be reseeded with an approved grass seed mix. A weed management plan is in the process of being developed with assistance by the Broadwater County Weed Coordinator to control and prevent the growth of noxious weeds. Wildlife such as antelope, deer, upland game birds, other small birds, snakes, rabbits, fox, and coyote occasionally utilize the proposed subdivision. However, the use is infrequent due to the lack of cover in prime feeding areas, as well as the close proximity to a nearby commercial and residential development and a busy highway. Therefore, the impacts to wildlife would be minimal. A cultural resource inventory was performed by the Montana Historical Society on September 3, 2020, to determine if there are any known historical, cultural, or archaeological sites which may be affected by the proposed development. According to the Montana Cultural Resource Information Systems, there have been no previously identified areas of historical significance. However, if cultural materials are found during construction, MHS will be notified. Access to the lots will be off of US Highway 287. The approach permit must be approved prior to final plat approval. Utility service will be provided by Northwestern Energy. Natural gas service is not currently available. The proposed subdivision is in the Three Forks Fire District jurisdiction. The distance from the city of Three Forks Fire Hall to the subdivision is approximately 4.5 miles. The developer's representative sent a letter to the Three Forks Fire District Chief on August 17, 2020. To date, a response from the fire department has not been received. The Broadwater County Sheriff's Department will provide law enforcement services. The Sheriff's Department is located approximately 30 miles from the proposed subdivision. The Three Forks Ambulance Service, located in Three Forks, will provide both ambulance and emergency medical services to the subdivision residents. The proposed subdivision is served by the Three Forks schools. The potential for new students from this development will not be a factor since the lots are proposed to be used for commercial, industrial purposes only. Lands to the north is residential, subdivision, and commercial. Lands to the west are agricultural, commercial. Lands to the south are commercial, and lands to the east are agricultural. The property is bordered on the east by the heavily traveled US Highway 287. This could potentially pose a serious risk to the safety of the subdivision residents. Since this is a minor subdivision, no parkland dedication is required, pursuant to 76.3.6093 MCA. The Bridger Brewing West minor subdivision is recommended for approval with the following conditions. Number 1, prior to any development and or soil disturbance, a weed management plan for the proposed development shall be submitted to the County Weed District for review and approval. Number 2, prior to any development, approach permits shall be requested from the Montana Department of Transportation. Number 3, the applicant will be required to submit the preliminary and final plat drawings in electronic format to Broadwater County in ArcGIS, AutoCAD, or MicroStation format. Additional materials may be requested by the county in electronic format to facilitate review of application materials. Number 4, plans for the location and installation of individual mailboxes shall be reviewed and approved by the United States Postal Service prior to installation. Number 5, the applicant and the Fire Protection Authority having jurisdiction shall use their best efforts to draft a fire protection plan specifically for this subdivision in accordance with Broadwater County subdivision regulations. The plan should be equally acceptable to the FPHJ, the applicant, and the county governing authority. The plan shall adequately address the fire risk analysis, all findings of fact, and appropriate mitigation measures. In the event the parties are unable to come to agreement by the final plat submittal, the applicant shall become eligible to provide the per lot cash in lieu fee for water supply, as may be defined in the Broadwater County subdivision regulations in effect at the time of submittal. Number 6, the book and page reference to the restrictive covenants filed with the county clerk and recorder shall be indicated on the face of the final plat. In addition, restrictive covenants, revocable or alterable only with the consent of the Board of County Commissioners, shall be placed upon the property and shall provide for the following. Subitem A, for the subdivision, or per the subdivision application, all lots shall be used for commercial Per the subdivision application, all lots shall be used for commercial industrial purposes only. B, notification of the potential health risk from radon concentrations and that such risk can be evaluated through soil tests and mitigated through radon abatement techniques incorporated into structures. C, a notification that all units within the subdivision should be constructed to specifications which meet or exceed equivalent provisions in the applicable state building code for this seismic zone, which is Zone 3. D, notification of the potential degradation of existing emergency services due to the potential for growth in a rural area. E, any additional replacement or relocated utility lines shall be installed underground in accordance with county subdivision regulations unless otherwise determined by the utility provided. F, any exterior lighting shall be directed downward to minimize visibility beyond the property lines. G, notification of the presence of agricultural operations in the vicinity. H, a waiver of the right to protest to join a special district for the purpose of providing community water and or wastewater treatment system improvements and or maintenance. I, a restrictive covenant binding the landowner, any heirs, successors, and assigns, and all future owners of property within the subdivision, agreeing therein to hold Broadwater County harmless and indemnify Broadwater County from all claims, demands, obligations, suits, causes of action, damages, and liability, including the county's costs and attorney's fees arising in any manner whatsoever out of or relating to the existence, use, operation, repair, and or maintenance of the following. Sub-item 1, earthquake fault zone and any seismic activity. And number 2, water availability. J, each lot shall be maintained in a clean, attractive, and weed-free manner. Noxious weeds must be pulled, sprayed, or cut prior to seed maturity. K, a prohibition of the storage of foods, garbage, or continuous feeding of domestic pets outdoors or other activities that creates an attractive nuisance for wildlife species. Hay or alfalfa storage and feeding are not prohibited where livestock are permitted. L, lots shall only allow for livestock if a small acreage livestock management plan is reviewed and approved by the county extension agent and submitted to the county. Each lot owner shall be required to create and adhere to their own livestock management plan. M, all cats and dogs must be restrained, penned, or otherwise under the control of their owner at all times. N, address numbers shall be clearly marked at the driveway entrance to each lot and be easily identified from the road. Number 7, prior to filing the final plat, the following improvements shall be installed or otherwise guaranteed. A, any necessary improvements required by the stormwater drainage plan, weed management plan, fire protection plan, or approach permits. And B, utilities abutting and available to each lot, electrical and telephone shall be underground unless otherwise determined by the utility provided. If said improvements are not installed prior to final plat, then the applicant shall enter into a written subdivision improvements agreement with Broadwater County, guaranteeing the construction and installation of such improvements, and shall provide an acceptable financial security guarantee in accordance with county subdivision regulations, Appendix E. 8, prior to filing the final plat, the applicant shall A, provide proof that all taxes and special assessments assessed and levied on the property are paid for the current tax year, including any past delinquencies. And B, provide documentation, an abstract of title or platting certificate, showing that the applicant is the lawful owner of the property with the apparent authority to subdivide the same, showing the names of lien holders or claimants of record and the written consent to the subdivision by the owners of the land, if other than the applicant, and any lien holders or claimants of record against the land. And although it is not up to the planning board to make any motions on the variance, that will be the commissioners. The variance request goes to the commissioners. I think it's important to identify the reasons for the request of the variance, so this board can either show support or not for the requested variance. So there are 2 variance requests. I'm going to read the one here that's loose and not in your binder, and then I'll direct you to the one in your application. So the purpose of this variance request is from completing Appendix County Sanitarian Checklist. So, and I'm just going to read it verbatim per their request here. Since the proposed lots will tie into the utility district, on-site systems are not proposed. Appendix M, address development on the 25-acre lot. Lot 1 will be subdivided in the future, and no buildings are proposed at this time. So their purpose of requesting a variance from completing Appendix M of our subdivision regulations, which is pertinent to all lots over 20 acres, has basis in the fact that it will connect to the utility service or the utility system that will be installed. And then the second request, I just need to find it in here. All right, it's under tab 1 of your Bridger Brewing submittal book here. And this variance request is from providing MDEQ, which stands for Montana Department of Environmental Quality. So the variance request is from providing MDEQ water and wastewater material in the subdivision application for Lot 2. And there are sanitary restrictions in place on the preliminary plat that would prevent someone from attempting to install a system without going through DEQ and going back through the process. So just keep note of those. If you could, during your recommendation of approval with conditions, approval or denial of this subdivision, those variance requests, it would be beneficial if you could have a discussion and make a motion on your support or lack of support for those variance requests.
Could you read what is the variance for again? What parts of that is?
Certainly. So there's two of them. One is for a variance from completing Appendix M. Appendix M is in our subdivision regulations, which I failed to give you because we are going through the Richland.
That's okay.
But basically, Appendix M is the sanitarian's checklist for any parcel over 20 acres. So because then it would not go through the state Department of Environmental Quality. They simply work with our local health department, our environmental health department. So one variance request is from providing Appendix M in this application and completing, the sanitarian's checklist portion of it. The other request is from submitting any water and wastewater treatment system information to DEQ.
I see.
And for the same reason being that their plan is to connect to the Bridger Brewing or the Wheatland TED District wastewater and on-site water system. I did not say that very eloquently, but I
No,
hope that you get the gist.
I was just wondering because it's over 20 acres. I was wondering what
The
there
other
is that you
ones.
had to submit anyway. So.
Okay, so you would have to submit I'll go over this briefly just so you have
I
an
don't want to
understanding.
pull
No,
anybody up here. I gotta-
I think I have it right here. So there are 12 items that are required to be submitted for Appendix M
And
unless
I
the variance is unless the variance is received. One is a lot layout. Number 2, 3 well logs within a 1 mile radius of the subdivision. Number 3, a map showing the location of the well log or the wells in relationship to the subdivision. Number 4, a water sample collected showing nitrates versus nitrites. Number 5, bacteriological results of the water samples from the existing wells, soil profiles, depth to bedrock, floodplain map, aerial photo, fee.
Okay.
So they're requesting a variance from submitting those items.
On
Because
the
it,
25 acres?
On the 25 acre, yes.
because it'll be connected to the water system and it won't be using the groundwater.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
And the
Okay.
other variances on
Thank
the
you.
12 acres?
Correct. Yep, from submitting to DEQ for the same reason, because they will not be putting in an on-site wastewater, basically a septic system and well. They're going to connect to the main system.
So, but the sanitary restrictions are on the 12 acres?
That's correct.
So that would you'd still have to go to the DEQ or through the sanitarian at that point if you wanted to put in a septic system, let's say.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And you don't have to go through DEQ? I mean, because that's state, right?
Yes, DEQ is a state agency. And so they can request to not go through DEQ. That simply means they cannot put an on-site wastewater treatment system in place. A lot of times you'll see that used if a parcel is going to be used for agricultural purposes only, where no water or wastewater requirements are needed. But in this instance, it's because there's a long-term goal.
Gotcha. And that's written in the plan somewhere?
That's in their variance. And so that actually will be made a motion by the commissioners to approve or deny these variances before they even can make a motion on the development.
Gotcha.
That's why it's beneficial if you can, give your thoughts. Do you agree with the request of this variance or the use of this variance, or do you have reasons for not?
Mm-hmm.
Just to help the commission make their ultimate decision.
Right. That's the reason I was asking is to know, like, I've done the 20 acre thing before, and I didn't, if you waive those, I just wanted to see what's in place if you waive them. So.
Certainly. Yep, they will have to go back through the process. So the 12 will not be granted a septic permit if it didn't
Gotcha.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
So even if for some reason they decided to not connect to the system, they would still have to go through DEQ in order to obtain a septic permit from our sanitarian.
I see.
And these 3 gentlemen are here today if you have questions. All representatives of the Bridger Brewing West Minor subdivision in some fashion.
There was one question that I had. Did you get my email and/or the call, the message I left you in regards to the zoning? Because it says in here that there's no zoning, but all the stuff that we went through for the TED says that it has to be zoned to have a TED. So what's up with that? Where's the zoning, or why is there no zoning here? That was kind of a red flag to me.
Yes, I did put the zoning map. It was an 8.5 by 11. I put the zoning map on your binder. It was an 8.5 by 11.
Is that the one that, with the?
No, I only had the one copy for
Oh, I
Herb on
see.
that one.
Gotcha.
And in the application, it said no zoning. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, in the application, it says there is no zoning at some point, right? Something, I think it was in section 110, and then there was someplace else
Oh,
that it referred to it. And it's just because this thing is unique and the fact that, at least it's the first one that I'm aware of in Broadwater County, and the first one in 20 years, is to make sure that we get it as right as possible. But I don't, where, you said you put a zoning map up, what,
I put it on top of your documents there, on your book. It's an 8.5 by 11. Color map.
well, I obviously buried it, or lost it, or something, because I don't,
To answer your question, though, this is in the TED zoning district. This parcel is.
okay,
So
but
that would've-
what is the zone, my point was, it says there's no zoning, but the law says there has to be zoning. What does the zone, what does the TED zoning have to say about it?
Well, let me read.
That was one of the big issues about the TED, was that it had to be zoned before it could be established. It just seems like a conflict, that's all.
Well, let me see. I might not have the zoning. I misunderstood your email. I thought you just wanted the zoning map, not the explanation of zoning. So I did not grab the appropriate documentation. And this was from 2019. So I truthfully don't remember what the language said. So I'm not even going to pretend.
And it might be zoning within that district. They've got that sewer and water district out there. So I don't believe it's a county zoning setup district. It's more of it's a district within a water and sewer district. Or
Yes,
zoning.
I agree with you on that. It's not land use zoning in the sense, but
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
You can't have residential.
And it just, yeah, it basically said no residential.
right.
That's something we need to make the commission aware of, is at least they do the reading. Would, you know, I'm not trying to determine it is or it isn't, but something ain't right in River City when it says no zoning in the app, and MCA says there has to be zoning for a TED. We just need to include what that zoning is. That can be handled in the conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly, because this is not, this document here, this was the Broadwater County Wheatland Targeted Economic Development District Comprehensive Development Plan, but it, and it speaks about zoning, but without spending,
Yeah, I'm not trying to tie that part of it up. I just,
excuse me,
we need to make sure that it gets into the
Conditions.
conditions so that the commission, it's very much like your variance deal. But, one question I had, and I think I know what the problem is, but it says that there is an approved weed plan. But I don't see, there's a weed plan in here, but it hasn't been approved by the county weed board.
It has, they did not send anything. It's been through the weed board. I did talk to, it went through the process. They did approve it, and I think I sent you the email on that.
yes, yeah, I just don't have the final, so the weed board did review the weed plan,
Okay.
and they have approved it. I simply kept it in there, that in there as a condition, because we need to have
Yeah,
that.
it's not signed in the book, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Did you move your office? Well, in section 4, it says we're gonna send it to the Belgrade Planning Office.
Oh, of the application?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I'm trying to read my own notes. There's something here that had to do with Article 2 that it goes back to that confusion over the zoning. There's some place in here that it says that it's outside of the zoning district. But if it's inside of the TED, to me, that can't happen. So that's research that needs to be done before the commission makes a decision on it.
And I can try to explain kind of what's going on a little bit, and Rick's here with the whole water sewer district and the TED process. That the district is.
Do you want, would you, I'm sorry, but would you please state your name for the record as well,
Okay.
and then,
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
if you're comfortable, just for Helen taking minutes.
Try to answer a couple other things. Bill Dreyer with Alpine Surveying Engineering out of Bozeman. So since the application got submitted, the Wheatland Water Sewer District and the TED process is going into a private district just because of the funding, and the funding did not come through on the TED side. So that's in the process of being changed right now. But there's still the water sewer district but it's a private one. Same place, same people, but Rick is the president of the new district, so he's here. He can explain that a little bit more if you need to. So there's a little flux, I guess, going on with the whole district part of that. I just want to jump back onto the 2 variances and why we did ask for those. Going forward and releasing the sanitary restrictions on, lot 2, the 12-acre lot, in order to release those and tie in the district or the wastewater system and water systems have to be substantially completed before DEQ can release them. So what we're trying to do is create this lot so it can be sold to Craig Rickards here. He's the one buying the 12-acre lots, and Rick will retain the 25-acre lot, which will further be subdivided later on. And all these lots are actually connecting to the water and sewer district out there. A unique thing with the water and sewer is it's a reuse system. So all the water that gets flushed away in the toilets goes down to the treatment plant. It gets treated and it gets pumped back up to all these facilities for irrigation, fire suppression. There will be fire hydrants out there, pressurized hydrants, and it can be used for toilet flushing in all these facilities. It's going to be classified as an A1 treatment system. It'll be the only one in the state at this time. Big Sky's trying to get that certification right now. So that's the type of the plant, and the plant's actually located on that one color map we gave you, and it's on the southeast corner, down by all that blue. Right down in this area. Okay. So it's southeast corner of the map. And that's where everything gravity flowed down to, treated, and then pumped back up to all the other lots in development. So that's why we asked for the variance. That Appendix M is basically set up for a lot layout, site plan, septic permit when you're digging test pits out there to find a suitable site for a drain field, on-site wells, and that's why we asked for the variance from that, because we're not headed in that direction. We're tying into the water sewer district. So that was the first variance, and the second one is anything under 20 acres has to be approved by DEQ. We did place that exemption on the plat so we can create that lot. It can be transferred to Craig Rickards here. And then once anything starts to be built on any of the lots out there, they have to get DEQ approval. So that restriction stops any building until DEQ approval is given. So,
That's what I was wondering about, so thank you.
and I talked about the fire suppression. You know, a big question on all these subdivisions is how are we going to address the fire issues? So we will have fire hydrants out there from this reuse system. So it's all pressurized fire hydrants out there, so that water source is in place prior to any construction. If there's any other questions.
Well, I already mentioned that I didn't have any real questions about that side of it. I think that one was fairly well explanatory. Do you need to break and
I'm
run?
gonna have to break and run, so
Go
apologize.
Bulldogs. Trinity's son is
Drive
playing
safe
in
and good luck
a big
with Bulldogs.
basketball game in Billings tonight.
Exactly.
They got a big police escort at school.
The boys
Yeah.
are in
it's
state.
pretty exciting.
That was awesome, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Good
Hey,
luck.
Good luck.
See
Yeah,
you.
good luck.
Safe travels.
So I think a lot of that TED stuff is going to go away because it's a private water sewer system. It's being funded privately now instead of through.
I didn't even get into that. I had no concern. My only concern is from a county legality standpoint.
Okay.
It's not about the road, it's about what it says in here, what we recommend to the commissioners, and what MCA says. And as long as it's legal, that's not a big deal. But I've got a couple other questions here later that will deal with that. And again, it can be something that goes into the conditions, but it's something that until, at least in my mind, until the questions are answered, then there shouldn't be a decision. That's up to the commission, it's not up to us. We can just put it in the conditions, and then when they've satisfied that they're happy that it's legal, they can act on it.
And I don't believe it's gone through a county formal zoning process for this whole area out there. I think it was zoning within the district, put on themselves by the district. And I could be
Yes,
wrong on that.
essentially, like through this process, we created the TED district, and then created. Well, we didn't. I shouldn't say we, but the water and sewer. Well, I don't even know that I would use the word zoning, but the water and sewer district. But I think through this comprehensive economic development district plan, it did talk about zoning, and so maybe that's just something we would have to have clarified moving forward.
Sure.
If it's-
Dave might be able to,
What's that?
Dave Sigler
Well,
might be
yeah,
able to
it-
answer a little more.
Without, I don't want to, it's simple. When we originally put this into a public utility district, and we were going to have TED, and we were going to bond it through county grants, Colorado decided that they thought that this district wasn't going to have enough employment. So by looking at the amount of land that was going to go into the TED and how many people would be employed, they felt like it wasn't big enough for them to give us the money to do the public district. They were looking for more employees, and that's where the money went. Now, this is just an understanding of what I had. So simply said, once we got declined on that grant, we had to do something because this is a tough area to put septic in. You have to do it through, sorry, I'm going to pull my mask down. It's hard to talk. So what we decided to do is, plain and simple, we'll do it privately, and now it pulls out the zoning from a TED district because we just decided we have to do something, and at that point, once we got declined on the grants, either we bring our own district in, or we try to do septic and well, but most of the land out there doesn't perk, so you can't put a septic system in. So plain and simple, we had to come up with the money and build the district ourselves. And it's going to become a very good tax base for the county, but I think as far as the zoning and all that is concerned, that all gets eliminated now because it's not part of the TED district.
In your documents for the TED, did they require that you not do any residential?
Well, that's a common legality to the TED anyway. You can't do
So that was
residential. Yeah.
Required of you.
Yeah, so there's gonna be no residential, especially in this first, 2-lot minor. That's all commercial, so, and all the stuff we're doing on the other side is all commercial as well, because originally it was in the district, and we have no plans of doing any residential anyway out there, so once we started building the private utility district, which we're working on getting that completed, but the great thing about that is they're putting us through a very rigorous DEQ submittal, but once we get all that approved, then we hook up all these lots and away we go. And then obviously it'll be controlled by covenants and things like that, which we want to put into place for each one of these, lots. So things changed when we thought originally we were going to get the grants and move forward with the TED, and they just declined because it wasn't big enough for where they wanted to put the funding. So we had to come to plan 2, which was, how are we going to do this? We decided that we would try to raise the money ourselves and do it through a private utility district.
The funding was from Department of Commerce and a
Yep.
separate deal with your TED district.
Yep, which was declined.
The TED was declined?
Well, our money was declined, so
The
we.
money from the
Yeah.
Department of Commerce, but the TED district is a state deal.
Yeah, and it's still there, but the zoning changed. Now, I don't know all I know is this is what we had to do, and I didn't think that it had anything to do with zoning of this area. And we certainly, it's something that we can look into right now, but.
So what if I have a suggested condition of approval here that states, and I'm just throwing this out here, feel free to amend it. So this condition would state, show evidence of zoning for the proposed development prior to final plat approval.
Or, how it applies to MCA. That's my only question, is because
Right.
it says so in MCA. It was a big issue when we were going through all the meetings with the TED. So that should be part of this document, or it should be explained in a legal manner to make sure that the county is acting in a legal manner. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that's
Okay.
and I think that's very simple to solve. We've got to go back, do a little bit of research, but I think that condition makes sense. A lot of things, we got hit really quickly with going from this route, all of a sudden we had to switch gears. It didn't change the way that the 2-lot minor was going to be put together, other than the zoning, and I don't think we really looked at that because we originally.
It's always been commercial, and it's always planned
Well,
to tie into the water and sewer.
But certainly we could take it to the last step.
I can understand when the almighty dollar is out there, your time is the big deal. So you're trying to get it done, and it's easy to overlook this. What I'm looking at is just is to protect the county from a legal standpoint, to make sure they don't overstep their bounds.
Sure.
Doesn't have anything to do with the project per se, as it is that this is the first one for the county. Let's at least make sure we get it right.
Sure, and I agree with that condition that you put forward. I mean, that'd be a good one to.
Because then we can research it.
For the Department of the
Yeah.
TED district.
Correct. Yeah. And how does the zoning apply to the TED? Because yes, the TED district is still in place. It didn't go away. However, how does that zoning piece fit into that? I don't have an answer. And
But we can get it answered.
but we can get an answer. And so I
Very
think it's
quick.
something that we can condition to get an answer prior to final plat approval.
It's just, like I say, to me, I can see it going through the planning board today, but we need to have the conditions on there so that the commission can act on it appropriately. And if they need more time, then they can talk to the subdividers in regards to suspension of time or whatever it takes to work out the problem. All I've got is a bunch of questions. I don't have any answers. I can read, and it gets questions going in my mind, but the one thing that caught my eye, and again, it'll add on to that condition, going through the property records there, I noticed that the property was acquired by the holding company in February of 2019. That's prior to the TED being formed. We were still meeting on it at that point. The most interesting thing, 'Cause I saw the date, and I wasn't looking for it. It just literally was right there. It's at the bottom of the page, and it jumped out at me. So you go back and reread the property card, and it says that it's already part of a tax increment financing district. Okay? So we're doing fine so far. But according to MCA, at least the way I read it, if it was a TIF already on that property in February of 2019, then MCA, to my little pea brain, says that you can't have a TED, which raises questions with the zoning and all of the other things. Because in the TED section, it's 715-4279. The item 2 under that goes, I said, I'll start off with Tuesday, just says a targeted economic development district, and then it says must, can, won't. Okay, get down to C, it says may not comprise any property included within an existing tax increment financing district. If this property is already in a TIF in February of 2019, how can there be a TED on top of it? To me, that's liability to the county, because if what I'm reading, and I'm no attorney, I'm not trying to pretend to be, but it just, when you go back and look to see what the law says, what I'm getting out of it is the law says there can't be a TED if the property's in a TIF. One of them could be a mistake. I don't know. But that needs to be researched and decided before the commission takes action on it.
Where is the property record card for 2019?
In the application.
Okay.
I don't remember what number. Somewhere towards the back. Do you remember
Because to my knowledge, it was not a part of a TIF.
Well, that was the first that I'd ever seen, and it came from the state where it showed on the property record that it was a TIF because it has a TIF exemption number.
Yeah, and I thought I signed it something after purchasing it that put it in the, like I had to legally sign, not, again, I'm no lawyer either, so I had to sign some document that actually put that 37.8 acres into the district. I had to sign it, I had to agree, sign, notarize, and I don't know when I did that, I can look back, but I had to sign something that legally put that in something, and I don't know what that was.
Well, the whole thing's been confusing since day one, as far as I was concerned, but that just, like I say, it jumped, that one date jumped out at me, and that started all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
So
So
it
it's
needs
under
to
item
be
number J, or letter J.
J.
J is
okay.
in Jack. Of the
Yeah,
application. Exemption type, tax increment financing district, TIF number 43-236, T as in Tom.
and that came from the state prior to the TED being formed. I don't know what date it became official, but that was when we were still having our meetings. We were having meetings in June of that year.
Well, it says date last modified, July 9th, 2020 at 12:06:05 a.m. I know that the deed date and the recorded date is February 2019.
Yeah, I'm not saying, I don't know, I saw the exact same thing, Nicole. But I don't know what
that means
the,
either.
I don't know what the last amendment was. I don't know if that was the TIF. If that was the TIF after the TED, then it's kind of a moot point, I think. But if it was a TIF before the TED, then the commission needs to have some legal advice before they say yea or nay.
May I ask you, what is a TIF? A
Tax
TIF
inc-
is when I get mad at Doodle.
Tax increment financing district.
So what does that mean?
And it's actually, it's like it's 3 numbers after. It's defined, the TIF is defined in 715-4282. But the biggest thing that I saw there was the situation about which happened first. But that needs to be in the conditions, because if the TED came first and then the TIF, to me, that's no big deal. But if it's the other way around, then they need to answer, is it legal, or what do we need to do to make it legal?
So this might be a bigger question than what the issue on the table of the subdivision, because the TED district is not what's being called into question today. I understand your point, certainly, and it does need to be researched, but I don't know how we can build it into the subdivision itself as a condition of approval.
Well,
Because
to
the
me,
TED and the
it's
TIF, or
the only way that
potential
we
TIF.
can pass it on to the commission for them to cause that to do. We can't go to Corey and say, hey, there's a problem here. But we can't make a recommendation, in my mind, on a subdivision of any size, commercial, residential, anything else, with a question sitting over it about whether or not it's legal under state law. And we're not doing our job if we don't point that out to the commission. All I'm saying is, I don't know if you want to put it in a commission, but the idea being is they need to sit down and read this thing and figure it out and talk to Corey to make sure that they're not overstepping their bounds when they go yay or nay.
Could we say subject to the regulations of the
Yeah,
TED
just
district?
subject to state law, Craig. I
Subject
mean,
to
it's
state law.
not, I'm not trying to do anything other than draw their attention to something, and it could be going back to this property record card. Because if that last adjustment was the TIF, it's probably not an issue. But what we have and what we're supposed to make our recommendations on to the commission, we don't have enough to say, yeah, go ahead, or we recommend for it. It's, you guys figure it out for yourself on this one.
Right, I guess the bigger question would be, which came first, the TED or the TIF? And it's this is not giving us.
Chicken or the egg.
I was gonna say it, but looking at this property record card, we can't determine that because the last modification was July 2020. Well, clearly that was after the TED was created, so maybe this TIF did come in after the TED. So I still think it's something that is worth noting and that these gentlemen especially would want to look into. But I don't know that it's pertinent or can be a part of the subdivision application, because the subdivision itself, what we're looking at is splitting a parcel into 2 pieces. We're not looking at, does it apply to the TED? Yes, it's in the TED, and it clearly cannot be used for residential purposes because that was specific to the creation of the TED. But looking at whether it's a part of a TIF, was the TIF first or the TED first, is important, but not pertinent to this portion of the discussion on whether or not it meets MCA for a subdivision.
I understand where you're coming from, and I can agree to a point. But the idea being, it goes back, it's just like the zoning. I have no problem saying, I even have a little blurb to add to your deal on the condition for the variances, and it has nothing more to do with calling the commission's attention to what our own standards say, which says that they have to give, once they grant a variance, to grant the variance, they have to be very specific about why the variance was granted. It's not a question about don't grant it. My whole thing about this whole thing is this is the very first one. Let's do it right. But I see all of this, the zoning. I know where you're coming from, but it says no zoning in the app. So if there is no zoning, then we don't have a TED, we don't have a lot of these other things, they're all tied together. There needs to be a comment somehow in what we send to the commission to call their attention to the fact that, hey folks, this is kind of, we need to straighten this piece of yarn out. It's all tied in knots here.
So do you have a proposal for this?
Not for that portion of what I was going to propose. What you had there for the variance was an MCA reference. Wait a minute, that's the wrong, I wrote it in the book. I just said C 1736-805 of MCA, which is in regards to the variance, and then page 44 and 45 of our subdivision standards, which is Roman numeral 5B, which says just what I was talking about. If you're going to grant a variance, you have to be very specific about what you're granting the variance for. I have no problem granting it. I think they should, but I think they need to make sure that they do the right thing in terms of including that paragraph 7 that's in our standards when they grant the variance.
Paragraph 7 of the subdivision regulations?
Mm-hmm. Page 44 and 45.
Thank you.
The last paragraph there under the variance is really what it boils down to. I think it's 7, isn't it?
Yes.
Nicole, what is that last sentence there? Excuse me, sir.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I'm sorry. So the statement that Herb is referring to, it's a statement of facts. And it is item number V as in Victor. Nope, sorry. These are Roman numeral 5B. Roman numeral 5B 7. And it's on page 45 of our Broadwater County subdivision regulations. It states, when a variance is granted, the motion to approve the proposed subdivision must contain a statement describing the variance and the facts and conditions upon which the issuance of the variance is based. And so it is pertaining moreover to the commissioner's motion to grant the variance, that they have to be explicit in how they make that motion.
And would that refer back to those specific items that we addressed in the variance?
In the variance, yeah. That,
Correct.
So,
to me, the importance of that is to make sure we get everything in that you just explained about why and how, and, you know, that statement of fact might be 2 pages long, but the commission needs to say, okay, we're going to grant the variance based on this finding of fact, but that needs to be part of that granting to show that they are doing exactly what the law allows.
and could you make that a generic statement as per the variance submitted and documented within the application? Because it's basically a two-page request addressing those specific items. And
Well, I'm just using the 2 pages as an example. I don't know what it's going to be. To me, our job is to send it on to the commission and they get to make up their mind what they want to say in it. You have some input on that when you go in to talk to them. It's whatever it takes to do it. It's just that we need to be as legal as we can be, that's all. I'm not smart enough to figure out how to put it in a motion.
Good thing you don't have to, being the chairperson, huh?
What's that?
I said, good thing you don't have to, being the chairperson.
Yeah.
Would we just modify the staff report, do an addendum to the staff report, modifying the variance request? Because it doesn't really fall under final approval conditions, it's just more of what the commission has to determine within that variance.
So what I'm envisioning, how this would go down, Bill, I would take your variance request and turn it into a summary and give it to the commissioners as a separate, you're correct, I suppose, an addendum to what they would receive as a findings of fact and order report. So it's very similar to the staff report, it's just a beefed up version of it. With a little more substance to it, obviously, and then some signature pages. So I could take this and create a summary as an addendum to that findings of fact and order report for the commissioners to read and make their motion if they agree to use that language and base their approval of the variance request on that.
And I can work with you on that.
Okay.
in the future.
To come up with a
Yeah.
summary that captures all of this.
Yeah.
Okay, or two summaries, essentially. Okay.
That sounds good. I'll call for a motion as long as we're going with what you said. We just need to get it to them in a form where they do more reading than they normally would because of the underlying questions. And they need to answer the questions and then act accordingly.
So the two requirements would be the zoning, checking out the zoning, and the TIF versus the TED?
Yes, I'm just not sure how you would build that in as a condition, the TIF versus TED. I don't know how to word that, to capture what it is you're saying.
Make
Well-
sure the legal requirements,
Yeah, perhaps just tie it down in very generic terms and saying that it requires a review to make sure that the county has acted appropriately in regards to the TED, the zoning, and acting on this subdivision.
you probably could just make it one in that statement.
The whole thing's about, does it meet the law? So you just reference MCA, and has the county acted appropriately?
But we can't build a condition that way. So I'm still looking for more specific language on how you want this condition to read. I mean, we don't want to put a condition in there that says, did the county act appropriately?
The county
Could we
needs to
say-
review?
The chairman's question regarding zoning was per the TED.
Right.
And so the question is, what do the TED regulations require for zoning?
Right.
And that's one item that needs to be checked on.
So how do we build that in, I guess, because one of the conditions, based on your conversation here, that I'm going to read here that I wrote down, and I've read this already, but show evidence of zoning for the proposed development prior to final plat approval. How does MCA apply to the zoning district? That would be a condition of approval. So you want another condition in addition to that, though, showing the TED versus TIF timeline.
Won't the zoning go into the TED versus TIF?
Well, the zoning is part of the TED to begin with.
So I don't
That's
think
part
we
of
need a
MCA.
second one.
The only real question then is you bring it back to what shows in, and that's where I understand where you're coming from, but you go back into J with that card.
The TIF.
That's part of the subdivision application. That question needs to be answered.
And a lot of that should be answered too through that final plating certificate, because the title company will come in and do that research prior to that. But we can still, I agree, we can still have that condition on there. But some of that's going to be proven within the new plating certificate that gets issued on this.
Well, I'm certainly not a banker or a realtor, but the idea that a title company would get involved in the MCA in terms of a TIF versus a TED kind of escapes me. I don't see them showing a whole lot of interest. I'm not saying one way or the other than the fact that this board, in my mind, should send to the commission the idea that there is a question that needs to be resolved. Put it in a separate letter.
So not
I don't have
necessarily as
a
a
problem with
condition.
that. It's just, we need to show them that there are questions that have arisen from the application about the legality of the TIF, TED, zoning, et cetera, all of which impacts whether or not they grant a variance or whether or not they recommend for the subdivision and okay it.
When that was first explained to me, my understanding is you can't have, you're not going to have TIF, and correct me if I'm wrong, in a rural area, and that's why they formed the TED. And so the question is, was there really a TIF on that property?
Yeah,
Exactly, that's
it could
the
be as
question
simple as a clarification from Department of Revenue. When did that exemption for the TIF go on?
And to me,
No,
to me, it seems like it was right about after we had signed something. I had signed some document that was given to me so that we could go ahead with getting into the district. And it seems like, and again, this is a long time ago, it seems like I had signed that document about the time that it changed. So I'm just trying to think, I mean, what, do you remember what, it was just a page document where I was asked if I was gonna put the 38 acres into something. And I was required to do that to be part of the TED. And so I agreed to do that because initially, all that area was part of the TED. So I had signed a document, and because I know that the property card didn't have that on it, and now it's got it on it, the TIF designation on it, so something during that time of me signing off changed it to that. And again, I don't know all the, I don't know what it is, but
So this is something the commissioners need to figure out, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know that
All
the
I'm trying to
commission
do
needs
is
to figure
figure
it
out
out.
how we can get it to
Well, I
them
think her statement's pretty good there.
in the right format so that they're aware that there is a question.
On the zoning.
We don't know that it's a problem, but there's a question, so find
is it
out
the
from
issue-
Department of Revenue, somewhere along the line, it needs to fall into line so that they can proceed with their,
Do you think her statement is adequate? The condition she has written out?
the condition for the variance would be fine. My only question is the TIF versus the TED.
It's not a
Because-
condition for the variance, though.
Could you reread that?
Yep. So this would be a condition of approval. It says, show evidence of zoning for the proposed development prior to final plat approval. How does MCA apply to this zoning district?
Is that,
it sounds like
Satisfactory?
in that statement, all this would have to come out.
Well, and I think the biggest question, so it's not up to the commissioners to determine this, it would be up to you, and it would be
Believe
for
me,
your benefit
We'll be working on it.
to
Yeah,
find out
so-
why does this property record card state tax increment financing district? Was that a mistype by the Department of Revenue? Was
Yeah.
that,
Is TED a subset of TIF?
right, and that I don't
And
know.
so someone just generically put TIF on it? I don't know.
I don't know either,
Yeah.
and so I think that that's more the question,
I agree.
because we are getting into this, sorry for the pun, but the chicken and the eggs
Yep.
situation of you can't have a TIF with a TED, but when did the TIF come into place? But are you even in a TIF? Because we know you're in a
I think this can be solved
TED.
very quickly. We're gonna go home and we can get to the bottom of this rather quickly. Without saying it's not a big issue, it is, obviously I get it, but something's weird here, and I don't know what it is. And we'll have to take a look at it.
Because I strongly feel that you are not part of a tax increment financing district.
I couldn't agree
I
with
do
you
not
more.
know of a tax increment financing district in the county.
Yeah, it's normally in a urban area.
Yeah, that's why I don't, something And again, I'm looking at so many documents, I missed that, I just didn't see that. And I don't think it's an issue that we can resolve very, very quickly.
And the other thing on the zoning, the way I understood it is you just have to say it's not going to be residential.
That's what I understood too, and I had to file something as well, it stated there will be no residential in this, and that was the end
And that
of
was part of the sewer district.
it. It was, so,
And
again,
I think you can get that at the courthouse, maybe even before you leave here, if you ask Ann for that document that you signed on.
we can
and
do
it would
that,
show
yeah.
that too.
And then I think your statement, your condition makes sense, because everything else will come out based on that condition that we have to resolve.
I agree.
I think getting into the TIF versus TED is important, but
Yeah.
I can't draw a correlation to the subdivision application.
Well, let's move on in terms, let's get a motion for the conditions. We can always put it in a separate letter
Okay,
to them that this is a question that needs to be answered before they act on anything else.
okay,
That keeps it going. So I'm waiting for a motion.
okay.
You're not getting it from me because I don't know TIF from TED.
You can't repeat everything we've said for the last.
Unless you want me to say that everything that Nicole has said as far as writing a letter, I'm for it.
Well, I don't know, we're not to writing a letter yet. So the motion would be, as I understand it, would be to amend my staff report to you, the planning board, to add the addition of a condition which states, show evidence of zoning for the proposed development prior to final plat approval. How does MCA apply to this zoning district? So that would be your motion, not to put words into your mouth, but
That's my
where I
motion,
believe
and
we're
you,
at.
watch, my lips are moving.
Now we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, got 2 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we got that one put to bed.
Well, just the addition of the condition, not.
Just the addition of the condition so that
For the
that part of
conditions
it
we're in.
goes on.
It is a song.
It really is, yeah.
But, you know, I don't care, you're the word merchant, I don't care how it's written, but just 1 paragraph or less, a note from the planning board to the commission that there is a question in terms of the timing. Not the legality, because the timing is going to determine the legality. Was the thing a TIF beforehand? Was that an error from Department of Revenue? When did they assign the TIF number to them?
We can find that out over here. Yeah,
At the
we'll just
courthouse?
get on that right now while we're here.
Well, that will have to be at the Department of Revenue in Helena for that portion of it. But you can find your documentation that you signed that was recorded, because they do know that was recorded in the courthouse. And
Okay.
that was for the TED. And so I think if I can make a statement here, I can have this question, bless you, I can have this question drafted, or this statement drafted to the commissioners, so they could have it for this will go potentially before the commissioners on March 15th. They could have it at that meeting, and if you gentlemen could have an answer to that question, the commission can read the question, you can read the answer. Does
Perfect.
that satisfy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the whole thing is, you know, let's get the answer. You know?
And then we'll get on this TED versus TIF and all this stuff.
Okay, good. Because I do think your points are valid, and I
Yeah.
think that we do need to address any concerns that we have. I agree with you, whether it's the first one or the 50th one, you know, we've got to be sure that we're looking at every piece of it. So I really, really
Okay.
appreciate that.
To be legal, then let's have a motion from somebody that we send a note to the commission so that they can do their research and have an answer when the actual subdivision comes before them when it's scheduled.
You want me to do it again?
Somebody, I don't care.
I'll do it again.
You're not bashful.
You're an expert at it. Go ahead.
I know, I can just say
Okay,
that.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second it.
Okay, motion and a second from Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You get to draft them a paragraph so that maybe this thing can get put to bed.
And then Bill, can you put this into just a summary of statement? It can just be an email, and then I will put it into the appropriate format. Is that okay?
I'll do it on that.
Okay. You still need to make a motion on the development, on whether or not you grant preliminary approval or recommend
Oh,
preliminary approval.
okay.
Don't
Yes.
close your book just yet.
We would entertain a motion that we recommend to the commission that they approve with the amended conditions.
I do.
Had a motion
And I second it.
and a second. All in favor?
I-
Opposed? Okay, now you got all your motions.
I'm glad I'm out wearing a mask so y'all don't know who I am.
We found her on the sidewalk.
I'm a dumb blonde, but I'm not dumb and my
She
roots
is
are brown.
not. She's brilliant. So this will go potentially before the commissioners on Monday, March 15th.
Okay, no, we'll start getting that stuff to you.
Perfect.
Get this cleared up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I sure hope we don't get any more of those.
You know, it's always fun working through a new plan, though, isn't it? Honestly, like I really enjoy the discussion and the challenge that comes with working through some of these new ones like this. Well, everyone is a new one. None of them are the same.
Well, we should have worn everything out now, Bernadette.
Thank you, Nicole, for tolerating my speech.
Oh, no, and I hope that you don't think I'm ever overstepping
Okay.
it.
Guess the appropriate thing then would be for your staff report for Antelope Run.
Yes, one moment, I'm so sorry. Let me disseminate these. That's done, that's done.
While you're passing,
Here's a big copy if anyone wants to look at a larger copy. You can sit up here and you guys can pass it down if you need to. Oh, and before you start, there was a question last meeting about the road names.
Yes.
So I talked to the landowner and it was just a very, very minor change. Instead of an angle here, he just did a curve so that this could be one continuous road. That made more sense. He said because he didn't want this to be the extension of this road because it's doubtful he's ever going to do anything there. He said it's actually just going to be gated off because it just goes to the gravel pit for Mr. Rodarmo.
Thank you, ma'am.
So he just wanted to make this one road name, so it'll be one continuous. So I brought that so you guys could see the,
You're welcome.
it used to be that point, and we just added this curve here.
Bernadette,
Yes, sir.
so you can see what, that was my question to you and Dan. I went back out with a hand level.
Uh-huh.
There is a minor discrepancy there with the hand level. Has he done any more?
He hasn't been down there,
Okay.
no, since I did talk to him. And, you know, he said he's open to move the road a little bit if he needs to. That's where Jack Rodarmo had built the road. We discussed, you know, moving it further, but it gets steeper, and he felt that would be more dangerous. But like I said, this will go to the engineer that'll have to,
Well, all I was gonna propose to him, just, I'm not trying, I don't wanna catch you blind, but so you can look at it and see, tell me if I'm wrong, but what I found there could be done with an easement from the adjoining landowner. It's just the toe of the slope in those two steep little spots
right, so I doubt it.
that where it physically won't fit.
Right, and did you start from the existing center line of the road there? because where the road is right now may not be where the actual
I
road
understand.
is.
I started from, it's very rough. I took it from the fences.
Okay.
They came within plus or minus a foot, but, I got lots of miles of fences that are wherever you can put it easiest. But
Was this my copy?
Yeah,
All right.
that way and like I say, it's just where the steep, there's two little indentations right there.
Uh-huh.
But it could become a physical access, an overlapping problem if they had an easement for the toe of slope from the adjacent landowner. Because according to your book, it's not the same. Then it's no
Right,
big
no,
deal.
it's
It's
not.
just something that the commission needs to be aware of.
You bet.
This is yours, Bernie.
Oh, thank you.
Did I get a staff report when I was looking at everything else?
It should be right there in your right hand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Says so at the top.
Well, I'm just making sure it's the right one that looks like it. All right, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, so this is I need to take this down. Staff report of the Antelope Run 1 minor subdivision. Preliminary plat is dated December 15th, 2020. This is a proposed minor subdivision preliminary plat to be known as the Antelope Run 1 minor subdivision. Date of application was December 23rd, 2020. Date of sufficiency, February 9th, 2021, and review period will end March 31st of 2021. The applicant is James Griffin of Willow Creek, Montana, and the applicant's representative is Bernadette Swenson of Townsend, Montana. The proposed subdivision is located approximately 1.9 miles southeast of the U.S. Highway 287 and I-90 interchange. The applicant proposes to develop 5 residential lots from an existing 20-acre parcel. These lots will be served by individual wastewater treatment systems and individual wells. Access to the proposed subdivision will be off of an existing, lost my place, I'm sorry. Off of an internal subdivision road via the existing county road, KOA Road. The required preliminary review fee of $2,000 and the weed inspection fee of $240 have all been paid. The proposed subdivision is a first minor subdivision from a tract of record. Therefore, a public hearing is not required. The 5 lots created will range from 2.02 acres to 8.49 acres in size. The landowner is proposing to construct 7 duplexes total on the 5 lots. According to the preliminary plat application, item number 30, 2 dwelling units are proposed on lot 1 and 2 dwelling units are proposed on lot 5. 1 dwelling unit is proposed on each of the remaining lots 2, 3, and 4. Review is performed pursuant to the Montana Subdivision Platting Act, Section 76.3.101 through 76.3.614 Montana Codes Annotated, and the Broadwater County Subdivision Regulations. The proposed preliminary plat, Antelope Run 1 minor subdivision, as submitted by the applicant, together with the required supplementary plans and information, appear to satisfy the requirements of these regulations and comply with the Broadwater County Growth Policy Plan dated July 2020. A preliminary plat, vicinity map, and topographic map of the proposed subdivision have been provided. No rock outcroppings or the presence of bedrock have been identified on the property. The proposed subdivision is not in an area subject to flood hazard, according to FEMA's floodplain map. There are some areas of excessive slopes greater than 35%. These tracts will be served by individual wells and wastewater treatment systems. Since all parcels are less than 20 acres, review and approval will be performed by the Department of Environmental Quality. The lot owners will be responsible for disposal of their own solid waste. The subdivision residents will have the option of hiring an independent contractor to pick up their solid waste or transport it themselves to the Logan landfill southwest of this proposed subdivision. The property is currently open range, growing native grasses and shrubs. Land to the north is residential and agricultural. Lands to the south, east, and west are agricultural. This 5-lot subdivision will have a minimal effect on agricultural productivity since no lots are being removed from active agricultural production. According to the applicant, the proposed subdivision is not located on prime farmland as defined by the Natural Resource Conservation Service. This subdivision is considered somewhat compatible with surrounding uses since only 5 parcels are being created and they are of a moderate size. No conflicts between the proposed subdivision and adjacent farm operations have been identified. This proposed subdivision should not interfere with the movement of farm machinery operation of any irrigation systems, or diminish the availability or quality of water in the surrounding area. An environmental assessment was not required for this subdivision. No hazards such as falls, slides, or slumps are indicated on the plat. There is no known seismic activity. No geological conditions which might affect the development, such as unsuitable soils, were identified within the proposed subdivision. However, there are some areas of excessive slopes. There are no areas of marsh, grassland, shrub, or forest located on the property. Currently, there have been no noxious weeds identified on the property by the landowner. A noxious weed management plan application form is included in the preliminary plat application as item number 27, but to date it has not yet been approved. If in the future any noxious weeds are identified, they will be sprayed with the appropriate herbicide. This subdivision should have no impact on wildlife areas such as big game wintering range, migration routes, nesting areas, wetland, or important habitat for rare or endangered species. Because of the size of the parcels and the fact that only 5 home sites are being constructed on the property, any effects on wildlife should be minimal. A letter to the Montana Historical Society is included in the preliminary plat application as item number 33. To date, a response has not been received. One new road is proposed for this subdivision. This subdivision road will have direct access from the existing KOA road, which has been determined to be a county road. The internal subdivision road will serve all 5 lots. According to Mako Land Use Attorney Tara Depew, the developer must pay the proportionate share the subdivision will have on all roads leading to the subdivision, in this instance, KOA road. It is estimated that the Antelope Run 1 minor subdivision will generate an additional 40 vehicle trips per day per the Broadwater County Growth Policy Plan. Northwestern Energy will provide electrical service to this proposed subdivision. Phone service will be provided by CenturyLink. It is assumed that all utilities will be installed underground. The Three Forks Fire Department will serve the proposed subdivision. A letter written to the Three Forks Fire Department is included in the preliminary plat application as item number 26. The developer is proposing to maintain vegetation around structures, prohibit the storage of junk, ensure address plaques are installed and visible from the road, and encourage residents to create an emergency action plan in the event of a wildfire or other emergency. To date, a signed and approved fire plan has not been received. The nearest fire station is the City of Three Forks Fire Station, which is located approximately 3.5 miles southeast of this proposed subdivision. The Broadwater County Sheriff, located in Townsend, will provide law enforcement, and the Broadwater Ambulance Service, also located in Townsend, will provide both ambulatory and emergency services. The Sheriff's Department and Broadwater Ambulance Service are both located approximately 4 miles southeast of the proposed subdivision. Letters written to both agencies are included in item number 23 of the preliminary plat application. The proposed development will generate approximately 8 school-aged children whom will attend school in Three Forks. There is an existing school bus route that serves this area, and the addition of 8 bus riders may have an impact on the bus route, but will likely not have an impact on the school. Lands in most directions are agricultural. This subdivision should be compatible with surrounding land uses since there will be only 5 home sites constructed. And as you'll see on here, effects on public health and safety, I left that with a question mark because I can't imagine what any of the negative impacts will be, but open to suggestion on the report here. Parks and recreation facilities. Since this proposed subdivision is the first minor subdivision from a tract of record, no parks or recreation facilities are required. The Antelope Run 1 minor subdivision is recommended for approval with the following conditions. Number 1, plans for sewage treatment and water supply shall be submitted to the Montana Department of Environmental Quality for review and approval. The certificate of approval shall be filed with the final plat. Number 2, prior to any development and or soil disturbance, a weed management plan for the proposed development shall be submitted to the County Weed District for review and approval. Number 3, the applicant will be required to submit the final plat drawings in electronic format to Broadwater County in ArcGIS, AutoCAD, or MicroStation format. Additional materials may be requested by the county in electronic format to facilitate review of application materials. The applicant and the Fire Protection Authority having jurisdiction shall use their best efforts to draft a fire protection plan specifically for this subdivision in accordance with the Broadwater County subdivision regulations. The plan shall be equally acceptable to the FPAHJ, the applicant, and the county governing authority. The plan shall adequately address the fire risk analysis, all findings of fact, and appropriate mitigation measures. In the event the parties are unable to come to an agreement by the time of final plat submittal, the applicant shall become eligible to provide the per lot cash and lieu fee for water supply, as may be defined in the Broadwater County subdivision regulations in effect at the time of submittal. Number 5, the final plat shall be prepared in accordance with the applicable state survey requirements, Montana Subdivision and Plating Act survey requirements, and the county subdivision regulations. Number 6, all internal subdivision roads must be designed in accordance with the Broadwater County road standards and stamped by a professional engineer. A letter from the PE shall be provided to the county stating that the roads and any improvements have been constructed in accordance with the approved plans and specifications, and that he or she has completed an inspection of the roads and any improvements. Number 7, the book and page reference to the restrictive covenant filed with the county clerk and recorder shall be indicated on the face of the final plat. In addition, restrictive covenants, revocable or alterable only with the consent of the Board of County Commissioners, shall be placed upon the property and shall provide for the following. A, per the subdivision application, all lots shall be used for residential purposes only. B, notification of the potential health risk from radon concentrations, and that such risk can be evaluated through soil tests and mitigated through radon abatement techniques incorporated into structures. C, a notification that all dwelling units within the subdivision should be constructed to specifications which meet or exceed equivalent provisions in the applicable state building code for this seismic zone, which is Zone 3. D, any additional replacement or relocated utility line shall be installed underground in accordance with county subdivision regulations unless otherwise determined by the utility provided. E, any exterior lighting shall be directed downward to minimize visibility beyond the property lines. F, a waiver of the right to protest to join a special district for the purpose of providing community water and or wastewater treatment system improvements and or maintenance. G, a restrictive covenant binding the landowner, any heirs, successors, and assigns, and all future owners of property within the subdivision, agreeing therein to hold Broadwater County harmless and indemnify Broadwater County from all claims, demands, obligations, suits, causes of action, damages, and liability, including the county's costs and attorney's fees, arising in any manner whatsoever out of or relating to the existence, use, operation, repair, and or maintenance of the following. Sub-item 1, earthquake fault zone and any seismic activity, and number 2, water availability. H, all cats and dogs must be restrained, penned, or otherwise under the control of their owner at all times. I, notification of the presence of agricultural operations in the vicinity. J, each lot shall be maintained in a clean, attractive, and weed-free manner. Noxious weeds must be pulled, sprayed, or cut prior to seed maturity. K, a waiver of right to protest joining a rural improvement or maintenance district for the purpose of road maintenance, mosquito control, or equitably funding parks and maintenance of parks. L, address numbers shall be clearly marked at the driveway entrance to each lot and be easily identified from the road. M, a notification that lots in this subdivision may be subject to impact fees if in place prior to lot sales. Number 8, prior to filing the final plat, the applicant shall A, provide proof that all taxes and special assessments assessed and levied on the property are paid for the current tax year, including any past delinquencies, and B, provide documentation, an abstract of title or platting certificate showing that the applicant is the lawful owner of the property with the apparent authority to subdivide the same, showing the names of lien holders or claimants of record and the written consent to the subdivision by the owners of the land, if other than the applicant, and any lien holders or claimants of record against the land. The applicant is financially responsible for actual outside engineering, consulting, professional and or contracted service fees, etc., at the sole discretion of the county for additional review and or final plat approval of the proposed subdivision. This preliminary approval shall be enforced for not more than 3 calendar years. So we want to talk about the statement. Sorry, I cannot read and keep my mask on. I'm going to
You can leave it off as far as I'm
going
concerned.
to
I can hear you a
suffocate.
lot better without it.
So a statement in here, I left it in as a statement, but not as a condition of approval. On the 3rd page, under effects on roads. Because we've gone back and forth on this so many times, and I know that with our new regulations, we are going to fix this. But the second portion under effects on roads, I left a statement in here that states, according to Mako Land Use Attorney Terry Depew, the developer must pay the proportionate share the subdivision will have on all roads leading to the subdivision. In this instance, KOA Road. So this comes from an email, I want to say 1.5 years ago, when we were asking, maybe even 2 years ago. I didn't print off the email, I should have, but about proportionate share. Because as you know, we've done this 1/50th per lot for a really long time, and I know it's your favorite, Herb. But that was based on the former Mako land use attorney, her advice, taking a number 1 local road which allows for 400 vehicle trips per day. Our growth policy plan states each home is assumed to be at 8 vehicle trips per day. 400 divided by 8, you come up with 50. So each house, in a sense, each lot has 1/50th of the share of improvements to the road. So depending on how many lots you do, you get that many 50ths, right? So I pose this question again to Tara Depew, who is our current Mako land use attorney, and her stance is very firm in that the developer pays their proportionate share of improvements to all roads leading to the subdivision. But then how do we do that on a county road? And I'm bringing this, I suppose, to you more as a question. I don't have a solution. KOA Road is a county road. If KOA Road is not built to a county subdivision or a county road standard, how do we put that burden on the developer to make all of those improvements? Or their proportionate share. So even, I know KOA Road isn't in this horrible of a condition, but if it was a 2-track, and to say bring it up to a local number 1 road, that's a 24-foot surface, 6 inches at base, 3 inches at top, that's a lot of material. That's a lot of engineering work, that's just a lot of work, even if you don't engineer it. So even if we're putting, in this case it would be 5/50ths or 1/10 of the improvement, the fact that it's not even built to a county road standard, there's some disparity in there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
My
Yes.
question and my statement?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I didn't put it in as a question, or as a condition, I'm sorry, but I put it into the staff report because I wanted to have this conversation on how do we feel about this?
Can I ask a question? How many people have actually seen KOA Road where this ties in? Did anybody visit the,
No, I did not.
Not recently, but I have within the.
yeah, I figured you had. It's, from the county standpoint, it's pretty ugly. It's the same piece of road that was an issue on the big one that was clear out at the end of the road.
Yes.
There's several hundred feet that does not meet, doesn't even come close to meeting county standards, both width and everything else. I gave Nicole that copy that you made. I went out there and shot grade, and it's strictly with hand level and a pocket tape, but there's a potential, and one of the things that I would discuss is that we add a condition just to make the commission aware of it. I don't think the toe of the slope on the south side, which is the downhill side, about 100 feet back from from the subdivision, I don't think we have adequate right-of-way. I think we need a small easement or something from the adjacent landowner, because the toe of the slope is going to run out there 2 or 3 feet. And there's going to be, I'll say several hundred, it might wind up being several thousand or a couple of thousand yards of material to make the road passable. Not, back up, not passable, it's passable right now, to make it meet the county subdivision road standards of a county road. The biggest question is, because of the steepness of the grade, is whether or not there's even adequate right-of-way for it. And the two, if my numbers are right, and again, this is with a hand level. I talked to Bernadette about it a week or more ago. They're going to have somebody look at it, but the idea being is that there needs to be engineering done, whether it's on the county's nickel, the developer's nickel, whatever. The road does not meet what we want county roads to be. By commensurate standards, River Road is a superhighway in terms of what needs to be done. My biggest question there, which would go back to Tara, and I think it's something that we need to address, if there's going to be duplexes, yes, there's 5 lots, but that's 7 families. Should be 7 times 8, not 5 times 8, in my mind. Now, whether or not we can do that under our current standards, I don't know. But that's something that we need to address on our next standards, is to make sure that it's on a family unit basis rather than a lot basis of somebody, I mean, if these are mother-in-law duplexes, that's one thing. But if they're going to buy the lot, build a duplex, live in one half and rent the other half out, that's still two families. So you're gonna have more traffic. I can't tell you one way or the other. I doubt that we can do anything about it now, but we need to address it in the future.
Well, you can do something about it now in the proportionate share of improvement. Well, not necessarily.
If we do it on lots, we can't.
Right.
That's the question for Tara, is to see whether or not is it the family unit, the vehicle trips per day, because if you're gonna have 7 families, it's not gonna be the same amount of vehicle trips per day as 5.
Well, I can make one little suggestion about that. If it was a Shelber family, you'd have 16 children. You'd really have some traffic. And I'm glad there's 16 because I married number 15. So I don't know how we could count people in like that right now.
Well, I'm not saying count people, I'm talking about counting the family units. If you're going to have 2 dwellings, if one is for rent and one is to live in, and I don't think we can do it under our current standards, but I think that it should be addressed in the future, that that would be what would go into the formula, would be on the number of family units, because even in our current standards, we don't differentiate, is it a retired couple, empty nesters, or is it somebody with 6 kids? So somebody with 6 kids, they're gonna make a heck of a lot more trips.
Yeah.
It's just kind of an overall average that we kind of get to, but that would be a question for Tara before we finalize.
What if it was a fourplex?
Yeah.
Hell,
Well, I brought
it's
this up
just one
on,
building, but
Nicole will remember it and she'll get upset with me, but Carroll Lane, I'm still waiting for my 4-story, 32-unit apartment to be built on Carroll Lane so that we get the rest of the money for the county to upgrade. And we can't do it unless we do it on a condominium, because if we're on a lot basis, then we're stuck on the lot basis and we're wind up with what we've been doing for too long. But the real issue is about how much wear and tear is going to go into it and how is it going to be handled.
So this proportionate share that we're using, it's not in our subdivision regulations. It's been legal advice and it's been past practice. So I think to say, when you know that it's a duplex or a multifamily unit, I think you would have justification in requiring additional proportionate share.
Can we impose road improvements on something that's not a regulation?
We have in the past, based on instruction from
Legally?
But it's come from the Mako land use attorney, that we can do
It was
this.
a suggestion, right?
Yeah. It's been advised, legally advised. So we have. I don't know if it's been challenged anywhere in the state. To know if there's case law on that. I know that it's been challenged previously when you imposed the improvements entirely on a developer, specifically out of Lewis and Clark County. Lewis and Clark County imposed 100% of the improvements onto a developer on a county road. The developer said, no, I only have to pay my proportionate share. I'm summarizing here, of course, but Lewis and Clark County lost. Developer got subdivision and
Twice they lost.
yeah, okay. Anyway, so that part of it has been challenged. I don't know that it has been challenged when it's been imposed to pay proportionate share, because we have our justification for proportionate share in math. And while I don't agree with, I mean, I do agree with you. That doesn't taste right coming out of my mouth, man. I do agree with you in this 1/50th. It's very frustrating, but it's based in math, and math is very black and white. Even though the regulation portion of it, I agree. Anyway, I don't know where it's ever been challenged, so I don't know. I don't have an answer, really.
I can say one thing, which I didn't know until I just read this, that they had planned on duplexes, out there. And I can see charging for an extra house, so to speak, because of the extra thing. But according to our smart growth that we all went to the classes to, one thing in there, it says the result is more compact growth since denser development offsets the cost of city services, and since minimum lot size requirements for septic tanks are eliminated. So he's doing a good thing by doing
Much needed.
duplexes,
Yeah.
which I didn't know that they were planning on that. So we have another subject to take into consideration. Besides the roads. The roads are our number one situation.
Well, and it's part of the problem is the lack of Broadwater County roads being up to their own standards.
But by law, they're where they can be.
I know.
1995, they made the law that because the counties don't have the finances to make all the roads up to standards, they don't have to.
But there's a certain amount of, I mean, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. The idea being is that we need to be fair to all parties, but if you get right down to it, there's about 200 feet of KOA road where I would not want to meet somebody when it was muddy or snowy.
Right, right.
Because that ground out there is slick. And if you're not sliding into the bank, you're gonna be sliding over the bank, and there's not enough room to pass. So, I mean, there is a certain safety issue there that
Right.
the county should step up and say, okay, maybe we're not gonna go to a 24-foot road, but we're gonna build a 18 or a 20, or, they're gonna do something to improve the access to that, because as a taxpayer, I'm not happy with it, but in reality, I don't see that we have any leg to stand on other than a proportionate amount based on the number of driven trips per day, which would be 56 rather than 40. It's still more up to the county to take care of the county road, because there is 2 people past that. Yeah, Bill?
Yeah, listen to this. It seems like, to be fair, wherever this place is at in the regulations that deals with a lot, that might have worked years ago, but boy, it seems like it should be on the dwelling, because with the price of houses and everybody, I'm sitting here, subdivisions going like crazy. I mean, somebody's gonna put fourplexes in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not fair. If I'm sitting here in my individual home and I'm paying the same to have this road done as somebody that puts a fourplex in and puts four in a fourplex is a duplex is nothing, but neither is a fourplex. I mean, you could put that on a 5-acre lot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
wherever those regs need to be changed or whatever to start addressing it as individual dwellings and not as a lot.
Well, I don't know whether it's dwelling, family unit, whatever the law says or whatever's appropriate, but that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's gotta have an address or something.
Yeah.
It's a duplex
Maybe
has to
that's
have 2 addresses.
Maybe that's the thing, if it has a separate address, even if it's A, B, C, or D.
Yeah, because I mean, I know you're gonna have to be seeing fourplexes come down the road.
Do you
I
have
think
to
so.
specify when you subdivide what you're gonna put on it?
Yes, in the application, there's under item number 1 on the actual application, indicate the proposed use. Residential, multifamily, types of multifamily
Okay.
structures, and 7 duplexes is
I
what
think I
they put in.
remember that now.
So, yes, you do have to specify
Okay.
if it's residential, single family, residential, multifamily, commercial, industrial, agricultural. So I do have, I was just searching through my emails here, an email from Tara. This is back January 2019, and I know I've emailed her, Tara DePue, I'm sorry, Mako Land Use Attorney, over and over. This is regarding the improvements of county roads. Specifically, my question was, I'm sorry, if the developer is building on a road, on a county road easement where no road is built, what happens then? Which is very similar to not having the road built to county road standards. I mean, if we're talking about a 2-track, if we're talking not built to standards. Tara's response: if the lot was right off the county road and the county road did not meet county road standards, that lot would only be responsible for its proportionate share of traffic on the county road. Most likely a traffic study would need to be done to determine the current level of traffic. And so then she goes into this vehicle trips per day, with the traffic impact study. And then the developer would have to pay their proportionate share of improvements. She also goes on to state, Section 763510 limits extension of capital facilities, which would not allow for a flat fee of payment, which includes public or county roads, to the impacts directly attributable to the subdivision. No, a flat assessment will not work, but cash based on the proportionate impact of the particular subdivision can be paid to the county and put in a fund for the specific county road. Then the county will need to schedule to make the improvements needed.
So if you have a county road that's going 10 miles out and somebody wants to do a subdivision, they're gonna have to pay for that road to be all,
That's the question. Yes. And according to her,
Buy closer to town.
it just seems, there's gotta be a better answer to this.
yeah, to have to improve the county road to the development, I don't have a good answer on that. I mean, obviously Tara's advice is yes, they have to pay their proportionate share of improvements to that county road.
Does the county make the improvements? I mean, like this road, are they gonna go out there and improve the road right away?
Not right away. Did you say right away? I'm sorry. Yeah, probably not right away. It would be on their schedule, but that money would go into the county road fund specifically for improvements to that road. And then the county road crew could make those improvements, or if it was a contractor that the county approved, because you do have to have approval from the public works director in order to do work within a county roadway. But if the public works director or road foreman approved, then a private contractor could do the work.
Bernadette, do you have?
Yeah, can I respond to a few things?
Yeah, I'm not the chairman. So.
Okay, oh, can I respond?
Jump in there.
Bernadette Swenson from Shawver Surveying. First of all, Herb, I wanted to respond on your suggestion of a condition of approval for the road. There is a condition of approval that the road has to meet engineering and be signed off. And there is MCA state law that you cannot encroach into neighboring property. So that will all have to be worked out in the engineering and be signed off by an engineer. So I don't know if we need an additional one, because I think that should cover it. So I just thought I'd throw that out at you. And also about the roads, and I know this is a big issue, and something that definitely needs to be addressed in probably the upcoming regulations so that it's not a continuing issue. I think it might have been those emails on another subdivision that this whole question was beat out before. And it even went to the commission, which is on the video, and I don't have the exact date here, but it was decided that with the commission that it's not in the regs. And by MCA law, every condition of approval does have to have a reg that goes along with it. So if it's not currently in the regs on the county subdivision roads, or no, county roads, not subdivision roads, that it isn't necessarily legal to charge for that. I don't know of any county roads we've charged on since the lawsuit, and we quit charging on all county roads.
I think
But
it was
it-
my subdivision, right?
What's that?
I think it was mine, wasn't it?
I think it was yours that went, and because of the proportionate share that was being questioned on Springville Lane. That's right. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. That, like I said, there is an MCA code that says all conditions of approval have to have a regulation. That's why there's the little italicized parentheses. And if there is one in MCA now, I don't know of one. But I agree that Tara, that's her suggestion. I just don't know if our regs allow for it, but I could be wrong. I don't. So I just wanted to throw those out. And I'm fine with a proportion, well, there wouldn't be a proportionate share, but, you know I'm working on another subdivision. I had a pre-app meeting, and when I did the vehicle count, I did, because it's duplexes, I figured 2 for each, so I don't see a problem with that. Just throwing that out there. I agree, there's 2 households. And I think that answered questions that you had so far.
Well, going back to your first statement about mine, I wasn't questioning what was in what you, if I understood you right, the engineer signs off on the subdivision roads. I'm not talking about subdivision road. I'm talking about the county road outside of the subdivision.
Oh, Sam
That's
misunderstood.
where that profile fits. That has nothing to do with the subdivision itself. That's the county's liability, because that's KOA Road 75 feet east of the corner of the property.
Okay.
Has nothing, no.
Not the
Your-
sub- oh,
Your
okay.
roads are fine. The reason that I think there needs to be a condition is that encroachment, the idea, it's in mitigation or something of that nature. We just need to make sure that the commission knows that, hey, folks, you're gonna either have to put in a little tiny sheet pile wall, you're gonna have to put in a 4-foot retaining wall, do something, or get an easement from the adjoining property owner to
on
be
the
able
county
to
road.
legally build the profile of the county road.
Okay.
Because if my numbers are right, and I'm not saying they are, but that I worked it out a couple of different ways after I drew it out, and there's very little that you can do. Cutting it down doesn't help because of the steep bank on the north side. Raising it up doesn't help because of the toes, so it's pretty much what it is what it is. And the county, at some point in time, is gonna have to bite the bullet and put a decent road in there.
Right. Oh, I misunderstood you. I thought it was on the subdivision
No,
road. Oh,
subdivision,
okay.
fine, no.
I was gonna say that.
No,
we have
that's all, that's
We have to
water
follow
under the
those.
bridge as far as I'm concerned. It's just, the cost is to every taxpayer in this room in terms of taking care of, and everybody else in terms of taking care of KOA, but it should be on 7 households, or however you want to do
Right.
it, 7 times 8 as opposed to 5 times 8. That's
No,
all
and
the
I
county's gonna
agree
get
with that. I
for
think,
revenue to offset the money that they're gonna have to spend.
right. You know, I agree with that. If it's a planned duplex, that's 2 families. And I don't know what the answer to the road issues are.
They're
And
not
that's where
gonna
I
go
come
away
in.
until all the county roads are up to standard.
Exactly.
So if this road is not in passable, safe, I didn't drive KOA Road. So if it's not in good condition, should you be can we move forward with the subdivision at the end of this road? Does the burden of improvements fall solely on Broadwater County taxpayers to improve this road? That's where my question is.
Mostly,
Okay.
that's the way I see it. I'll show you a picture and then you decide. Make sure I got the right.
Where do the revenues come to the county to update these roads besides the subdivision people that you're proposing, the 150th?
It would just simply come from your annual
Gotta
tax
wake
bill.
up and
Doesn't
pass
the
it
state
down.
or
That's the-
federal give them so much money?
That's looking east
county
from the
roads,
corner of the property.
And they only count
Yeah.
county roads, they don't count the subdivision roads in that formula?
No, just, it's a fuel tax, there's an acronym, there's a government acronym for the type of it, but basically it's fuel tax dollars that are reimbursed to the county based on the number of miles of county road that you have within your county,
Okay,
that the state reimburses you.
okay. So they do
Reimburses
get
county.
money from the state for these county roads?
Yes.
Besides that?
Okay, thank you.
Mary, you might want to see this.
Yeah. Kind of ugly, huh?
So that's where I left it in as a question. I don't have an answer. I don't know if you want me to pose this specific question to Tara and then leave it up to the commission to make the decision. You know, we've asked her about roads over and over, and I know we've gone both ways as far as improvement, not improvement, if the road's passable, if it's not passable. I mean, where is our threshold, I guess, for writing this condition in there?
No, I don't get a vote, but to me, the appropriate thing to do would be to advise the county the commission that they have a problem with the road, for one. Reference the idea about the mitigation, because it's up to the county in reality. Now, if the engineer goes out and finds that my numbers are all off and everything fits, that's one thing. But it needs to be determined if you can even build the prism for the county road within the county right of way.
Are you
Because
talking
there-
about the subdivision road or the county?
The
This
county.
is the
County
county
road.
road leading up to the subdivision.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've got a liability issue there, too.
Yeah. That road that you saw in the picture,
Mhm. That's the county road.
that's the county road. That's looking east on KOA Road. And I was standing at the corner, and it's 13 feet if you stretch your imagination from the fence post that's on center line, which happens to be the edge of the road, center line of the county right of way over to the existing one. There's only one lot past it that accesses past it. There's, what, 4 other lots from the T intersection. Road's actually paved up to within a mile of this. But it's that last half mile that's kind of, oops.
What I see this is brought to light is, again, since I have 2012 paperwork, the same question. I don't know what the answer is. We just keep running into this, a blank wall, and we say we give it to the commissioners to settle, and we're still settling it. I don't know her, what is their solution?
Well, I don't know that there is a solution, but in my mind, the only thing that we as a planning board, it's not up to us to tell them what to do. We can say, here's a problem,
That we can do, yes.
and you need to decide what you're gonna do, because the real problem is the legality. There is an issue with the safety for the county on the road, and there's an issue with taking of property if they were to build the road without getting an easement on the downhill side. That's probably the cheapest for the county, is if the landowner was amenable to giving them an easement down there, and they just went ahead and built the road, and they put the fence up over really the easement is for dirt, 2 foot of dirt.
Are you saying that so leading up to this property, so someone else's property that's not this developer, the county road easement, may
Mhm.
not be wide enough to accommodate for the appropriate
Yeah,
construction of the
that's,
road,
I
right?
gave,
Okay,
that copy that you made me, I gave the copy to Bernadette, that this piece right here, this crosshatched,
right,
is outside of the county right-of-way,
okay.
or
that's-
potentially is outside. I
And that's
don't know
of
because
topography? Is that because of topography that it would be outside of, that it couldn't
Yes.
fit within the 60-foot? Okay.
there's two ways to fix it. One is a retaining wall, the other is an easement for the fill. The road could not be upgraded without extending that toe out.
So I have some ideas on how to mitigate this, but it's going to take time. We could loop Jerry in, Jerry Gerbentz with Great West Engineering, who's.
I can't hear you.
I'm going to take this off so you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Jerry Gerbentz with Great West Engineering, we could loop him in to give his planning perspective as well as an engineering perspective for the county based on the road and topography and construction.
Yeah,
That's just going to take some more time.
yeah.
So that's an option.
And cost.
And cost, yes.
And the question is, would the county ever even build that road to county specs? I mean, complete to county specs, even if they improved it, but you know, what are the odds of them
Doing it.
building any of the county roads when, I mean, a majority of county roads aren't to county specs?
And then, of course, the planning portion of it, my question to Jerry would be, how do we approve a subdivision at the end of a subpar county road? Or do we put in a condition where the developer is to pay their proportionate share of improvements to that county road? What are other counties doing? What is their case law on this? I don't know if there's case law on this. I don't know if Jerry would know case law on this. Those are just my thoughts in this discussion here.
Going forward, I'd be curious what Richland does, if, you know, those regs are supposed to be the newest and greatest. I looked through those, I couldn't find anything to answer this question either. Like, you know, what they do with roads, so I don't know if Jerry has any ideas of how they handle that, you know, to get more ideas.
And I know he consults with at least 3 other counties, which I know that that's certainly not the majority of the counties in Montana.
I think
But
any suggestions.
I think
would
any
be-
suggestion would be beneficial at this
right.
point. Because even though I don't make a recommendation, I am uncomfortable suggesting that you make a recommendation to the commissioners based on the condition of this road currently. That let's go ahead and put 7 families living at the end of this road without improvements to it. Unless we can't require any improvements to it, then go ahead.
Well, in my mind, the right thing for us to do, because I don't see that we have a legal leg to stand on, is to change this condition to the 7 families, 56 people, send it on with the normal conditions that they pay that proportionate share. And whether it's done in the, if it can't be in the conditions, then maybe we need to write them another 1-paragraph letter that says, you got a problem here, folks, you gotta own up to it. Because the way I see it, we don't have a legal stance to say that the developer's gonna pay anything more than 1/56th of the cost to upgrade it to county standards.
Well, currently, we're not asking them, it's not in here as a condition at all. And so that's why I purposely left it out, but I included it, that statement in the staff report, because I wanted to have this discussion. I guess I could have put it in as a condition too, but anyway. So that's another option, to put it in as a condition of final plat approval, that the developer pays 7/50ths instead of 1/50th per lot, paying 7/50ths of the improvements to KOA Road.
Mm-hmm.
But that would require getting a bid for the improvements to KOA Road and then paying the our standard language for the improvements. So that's an option too, if you choose to recommend that condition.
To me, that's the only option, because we can't make them pay for the road, but we know that the county has liability if they don't do anything. So they need to be advised of the fact that, folks, it's time to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
You wanted a job to call the shots? Call the shots.
Okay, so two options essentially. Right, as I'm hearing this, you can add a condition to recommend to the commissioners that the developer pays 7/50 of improvements to KOA Road. If I'm capturing this all correctly.
Can you make road conditions a requirement of a subdivision, even though it's not in the regs?
That's the question that I'm circling back to, that, you know, we have legal advice from MACO that to impose this, but we don't have anything in our regulations. So can we impose it without something in our regulation?
I think that's the first issue to attack.
Which is why I'm thinking if we can run it past Jerry for a clarification and a better understanding, because I don't have an answer, and because we keep coming back to this, that, you know, well, Tara says this, but our regulations say this, and
And Jerry is.
I'm sorry, Jerry with Great West Engineering, Jerry Gerbetz. He's the contract planner. He's the guy I call when I get stumped.
The guy that was on the screen 2 meetings ago.
Oh,
And has
not
been
Jerry.
to-
That
did
did their growth policy.
Did the growth
Yeah.
policy. He's the one that's doing,
Gotcha.
do
And he's
the
the
paperwork on
contract
it.
planner that I work with for backup if I have questions on a subdivision like this. Tara is a free service, and so that's where we come back to it too. And I hate to say a free service; she's, you know, a brilliant human being, but relying on Tara's services is paid for through our Montana Association of Counties dues that the county pays. So we can access information or via Tara without an additional cost to the county, but she won't represent us. And so, you know, the communication and the conversation we can have is via email like this, where I can say, okay, here's my scenario, give me your legal advice. That doesn't cost the county anything. If we loop Jerry into it, there is going to be a cost. That cost would then have to be passed on to Mr. Griffin also through this developer responsible for actual outside engineering consulting fees portion of our regulations. So
And what about
There's
our
that.
county attorney?
he's not an additional cost to.
He's not, but
Us.
could we
No.
engage him also?
No, he is extremely busy, and in the process of hiring, actually did hire an assistant county attorney. So hopefully, his goal with that person would be to have the assistant county attorney present at these meetings. So, but no, that's not a possibility at this time.
I don't know if it's helpful. MCA 763604-9A says the review of a subdivision application, review for required element and sufficiency of information, states that it's for the regulations at the time of submittal, which is pretty common. And then 763620, number 2, requires the governing body shall prepare written statement that must provide to the applicant, that must be made available to the public, and that, number 2, identifies the regulations and statutes that are used in reaching the decision to deny or impose conditions, and explain how they apply to the decision to deny or impose conditions. So by MCA, like I had mentioned, you have to have a regulation to sink your teeth into on a condition for approval or denial. And like I said, I'm not arguing the fact that we definitely need to figure something out. I just don't know what it is or what to do now. I don't want to put the county in jeopardy, where they don't have a regulation to back themselves up.
Well, I think it's not so much, I'm not looking other than the 7 families as opposed to 5 for the developer to foot the bill. I don't think there's any way that money can go towards the road. But the rest, in my mind, the rest of the money has to come from the county.
No, I know that, but
Which
I
is
think what
unfortunate.
is being questioned is whether to require the developer to pay a proportionate share of a county road.
Can we require the developer to pay a portion?
Like I said, I mean, I'm impartial. I'm the representative, but I live in this county too, and it's not money out of my pocket, but I want to protect the county, and I want to just make sure we follow regulation. I think this was the whole circle we had before.
Because it's very unclear. And then when you think, long term, there are going to be families living at the end of this road. And if the county doesn't do the improvements to KOA Road, because we are not obligated, when I say we, I'm referring to the county, is not obligated to improve that road, then the road stays at this current condition. Is that safe, passable, smart? Should we be approving developments at the end of subpar county roads? And I know we just keep circling around this, and
Well,
I don't have the answer, is what I'm
It's
telling you.
safe because whoever lives at the end of the county road is obviously maintaining it because there's a 4-wheel drive loader sitting in their yard. And the first time I visited, the road had been plowed and it was consistent with being plowed with a loader rather than a grader.
And I think those folks are. That's Mr. Nave. I think that he's been,
It's who?
Ed Nave has been improving that road.
Yeah.
How does the school bus, it doesn't traverse that road? Do the kids have to go down the road and get on the school bus?
I'm sure
again?
they do, from what I've seen of it. That's Three Forks district, so it's not
Yeah.
in, our district doesn't even get off of the county road, but there's a nice turnaround intersection, and the road, it's cold mix paved, but it's paved past KOA, down through a swale to the first T intersection going to the south.
That's
My
probably
guess
where the
would be
bus
that's
turn-
where the bus
that's where
comes
the
to.
bus turns, yeah, okay.
I don't know, but there's 4 or 5 houses on that road as well as a couple beforehand. There's no evidence of children in the other residences going up on the north side of what's there. But it goes on past it. It's not too bad till you get to the bottom of the hill. It's just the piece where it goes back up because you've got a steep high bank on the north side.
North side, yeah.
And what you can see dropping off in the picture on the south
Yeah.
side.
Be like at Ray Creek, we have to take our children down to the county road to meet the school bus. I don't know how they do it.
So, to put another layer in here, our regulations don't specify subdivision roads or county roads under general standards.
No, they specify subdivision roads, and then, at least you have told me that at various times Dana wanted to assume ours, or wanted us to write some for them, so if they want to accept them, but ours are pretty much a standalone document. But the county road only has the same amount of right-of-way as what we have.
Right.
So even making that assumption, that's what reason I made that diagram, was to show that at least in two places in my mind, if the fences are on the right-of-way line, there's a problem building a legal road by our standards in that legal amount of space without an easement or without a retaining wall. And my personal opinion is the retaining wall is the right thing to do, because if you remember that nice big subdivision that was down there about 15 years ago up on the hill, that was at the end of this road. Can't remember what was the name of that one, Bernadette? I don't remember. South of Coulter's Run. There was a huge subdivision up there. It was like 40 lots. Did you do that one? But it was big enough that it was going to have to go to a Class 2 road, and that was what I pointed out then. It was this very same area. It's legal. Somebody made the comment in one of the meetings that you couldn't build the road. Yes, you can, but you'd have to put a retaining wall in to do so. Because my diagram only shows a number 1 road. If you upgraded it to a number 2 road, you're an additional 4 feet short.
So won't the engineering plan for the road show that? Isn't the condition of the subdivision that all roads are built to county specs?
Internal subdivision roads, because those are solely the responsibility of the developer.
Okay.
That's all we have control over is a subdivision.
And so looking outside of the subdivision to the outside access road, the county road, in this case KOA road,
Right.
we cannot put the entire burden, that's been proven with case law, we can't put the entire burden of
Right.
improvements of a county road on a developer. But then also, our regulations don't specify county or subdivision roads. You know, they talk about roads. So I'm going to read from page 25 of the subdivision regulations regarding improvements. And this is under section 4, design and development standards, specific to streets and roads, even more specific to improvements. So on page 25, item B1, it says all roadway improvements, including pavement, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and drainage, must be constructed in accordance with specifications and standards prescribed in these regulations using materials approved by the governing body. So the reason I'm reading that one, it doesn't say county road, it doesn't say subdivision road, all roadway improvements. So I think, I don't know, I don't want to make a guesstimate, but to ask how 763622 applies, I feel like this is a good example of how that applies, because this is a roadway improvement to the development.
Either it's design standards, I mean, those are all specific for the designs of the subdivision.
But this outside KOA road is specific to this subdivision,
It's not part of the subdivision.
but it's specific to the subdivision. You can't access a subdivision without
Well, it's
using this road.
specific to the subdivision, but yeah, so are all the houses. But I'm just saying the design standards in the subdivision regulations are designing their subdivision, not county roads.
But it doesn't say county.
Require you to put curb and gutter and everything else on the county road.
No, it just says including pavement. All roadway improvements including pavement.
Right.
So I still think we need further clarification on how 763622 applies. I feel like this could apply. I'm sorry, how 763620 applies regarding how the developer would pay the proportionate share to KOA road, because our regulations don't state improvements, county road, subdivision road, it's improvements. That's a wide circle to draw.
Is there two issues here? Is that there an issue with the 150th and then an issue how the subdivision road hits the county road?
So the way I'm seeing it, the only real issue in question right here is, can we require the developer to pay their proportionate share of improvements to the county road, which is the main access road? That's what's in question as I see it, but I could be.
Hasn't that been in question for years?
Uh-huh, yes. And we keep coming back to it. And especially when we have an instance where the county road is subpar moving forward with a development that utilizing that county road.
Well, even when it's subpar, that, to me, that's the reason for wanting to put in the Lewis and Clark formula. Because it's fair to all of them. It's the numbers, and it really doesn't depend on if the road's substandard, they're only gonna pay their percentage to have safe access to their subdivision as opposed to,
Yeah, but we don't have those standards in place yet.
We
which-
don't, and not only that, Lewis
No.
and Clark did get sued, unbelievably.
So is the question whether we're going to make them pay 1/50th of the road cost?
That's the question as I see it, yes. And so,
And then you had the item you brought up that if it, the development statement you read, saying if it was a benefit to Broadwater County?
Right. Now, maybe, here's what, perhaps what we can do. In some of these I've been going through, if we made suggestions, Herb and everybody, that twice a year, we have meetings with the commissioners as a planning board and go over potential problems. Maybe we need a meeting with the planning, with the commissioners, the road people, and us, all get together and see if we can work something out.
So what do we do in the meantime with this subdivision?
Right.
Until it, you can't have one subdivider not paying it and one subdivider paying it. It's
Exactly.
and my subdivision, I didn't have to pay it.
right.
Maury had to pay it in his subdivision. It's just like, it's a hit and miss on this road stuff.
And do we base it on the condition of the road currently? Is that fair
Well, it's not
and
part of
equitable?
the subdivision
Right.
regulation, so I don't think you can do that now. I mean, we can modify them, but it's not pertinent to this one right now.
Right, and so what do we do in this instance? Yes, that's my exact question too. So you can add the condition of, just developer will pay the 7/50ths of improvements to Kayway Road. That's the condition you're adding. You cannot add a condition and just leave it as I've written it without that condition in there. We can reach out to Jerry Gerbentz with Great West Engineering and Tara DePew and ask for clarification on how